Welcome to the Satanic Grotto, episode number 3. Don't forget to like, subscribe on all your major channels, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or on TikTok even. Give us a holler, let us know what you think. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We've got a couple members here that are founding members, and we're going to talk to them about their evolution into Satanism, where they came from, and kind of how the Satanic Grotto came to be.
Welcome to the Grotto Show. I'm Michael Stewart, and today I'm here with Michael Ferguson, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about how the Grotto got started, right, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, so it's kind of a long story, right? Like over the years, you and I have been working on something to this nature for a long time. Like, when you start thinking about what we've accomplished today, where do you start thinking about where it started? What's the first thing that pops out to you?
The first thing that pops up to me would be when we met. At the point when we met, we were 14.
Yeah, 14, 15, ninth grade.
We were 14 and turning 15 that school year.
Yeah.
So I had been going to Grandview Christian school.
Christian.
Woo!
Alumni.
My entire school life from kindergarten up until ninth grade when we met.
Ninth grade was my first year. I went to a regular public high school. I went to Grandview High School. I went to, well, I guess not high school, middle school, and then ninth grade high school, whatever. I went to Grandview Christian. But that's so I had more of the public school. You were definitely private school educated.
I'd only been to.
And then they dumped us in a basement together in South Kansas City, somewhere
Yeah,
under
in
a
Ruskin.
church. In Ruskin, yeah.
It was in Ruskin Heights. It was Ruskin Heights Baptist Church that Grandview Assembly and Grandview Christian School was leasing out. And they were leasing the basement of that church, and that's where our school was at that point. So
well, let me just clarify here. For you, your first immediate memory of us having anything to do with Satanism, starting to work with Satanism and other Satanists, was in ninth grade in the basement of a Baptist church
in Ruskin Heights.
In Ruskin Heights, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's great. Let's keep going.
So this is where the journey starts. So I'd been going to this school, my entire school life. He comes in ninth grade, and it wasn't immediate friendship, but over time we found out that we had a lot of the same questions, and
I wouldn't even say it wasn't an immediate friendship. Okay, not immediate the first day, but we got after we went to blows once or whatever. We became pretty quick friends after that. I would say by halfway through ninth grade, we were terrible.
So it wasn't an instant attraction?
Here's the story. I didn't think he wanted to maybe say it.
Not really, but
I told it at his wedding, so we might as well tell it here. When we first met, I was a spaz. I was ninth grade. I was lanky. I was a nerd. I played D&D. I had no social cues or grace, right?
I hated all of that.
He was a gangster.
Definitely
he was the
not
gangster of Grandview Christian School. For sure.
That's terrible.
At any rate, we would have these little breaks in between class. Now, class was all the same fucking room. The entire high school was in there, right? So we would just like work for an hour or whatever, what we were working on, and then they'd give us a break. We get 15 minutes to go fuck around, and there's a little area off to the side there. And my first distinct memory of seeing Mikey, he was across the room, and I have no clue what possessed me to take off just running like a spaz. Just like straight at him, and he was holding this fucking basketball. And I remember getting within just a hairs of an arm's reach of him, and he took that basketball and just boom, beamed me in the face with it. I mean, laid me the fuck out. It hit me so hard, the dimples from the basketball were like marked on my glasses.
It was self-defense. It was okay. First and foremost.
No joke. He wiped me out. Now,
I was afraid for my life.
Now, most people would take that as a sign, right? But the next day, he was out there hanging out with all his friends and whatever, and I snuck around and I jumped up on his back and I grabbed on and I rode him for like a bull for like a second.
At least the 8 seconds.
He treated you like a pastor.
And there was a moment in me riding him like the bull that I remember at first he was like, this fucking guy's on. And then he was like, wait a minute, get it. And I was like, I got him. This is my friend now.
And he tamed me. He tamed me.
And we were pretty good friends after that.
Yeah.
So it was
But
that didn't have anything to do with Satanism.
That was just some good homoerotic friendship that,
things develop, it's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when did you guys realize that you're not going to go down that path of the church? At what point did you guys go, you know what, this is not for us?
So I will say for me, I had known for probably a couple years at that point that church wasn't the direction that I was going to go. That I had been questioning things that just, everything within church and religion and stuff. And so when we met and we started talking and having the same kind of like, the same thoughts and the same.
That's I think our anger related. We knew we were being fed bullshit, right? I think for me at least, I felt a kinship in you that we knew that the school we were in wasn't teaching us shit, right? We knew that it was garbage. We knew that it was all them indoctrinating us. We knew that all these, and I mean, umpteen million rules that they had to establish to create the perfect little child that we had this innate need to rebel against. And I think we recognize that in each other super, and not just us. So, and that's the story goes on.
Right. There were a few of us within that school and that church that were questioning things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these kids I had grown up with. And
there were probably 30 kids in the entire high school.
Yeah, in the entire
our freshman year.
Our freshman year. Well, to put it into perspective, we had at the most 30 kids in there, and we had one graduating senior that year. The one senior walked down the aisle by herself and graduated. It was super weird.
So it was 30 all in one class.
All in one room.
Grades.
Yeah, it was 9th grade through 12th grade, all in one big basement.
And we were doing the PACE program. So we had one teacher for the whole high school because we were doing our own work and grading our own work. So
yeah. Oh, it was so they had a little grading desk like right in the center because all our desks lined the outer wall, and right in the center was like the answer key, right? So you'd do your work and you'd go up and you'd pretend like you did it and you pull your answer key out, just copy straight the fuck over without actually.
I didn't even do that. I just didn't care that year. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing school. I'm going to do the Satan thing. So
the Satan thing comes up. We're kids. This is, you got to think, I mean, Eminem, ICP, Marilyn Manson.
And there's so much hate for this, but definitely the ICP thing. For me, that's when I discovered them. And I was like, oh, there's this whole world of, people that
don't give a fuck.
Right. And that's
when we dove into all that. It wasn't just, it was music. It was trying to find occult literature.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, and this is back in 97 and 98.
Yeah.
And so, that was,
whoop, whoop, 90s kids.
Right. And we, had to figure out how to find occult material on the brand new internet and print it off.
I was about to say that's we were just talking about that before we got filming. Was he kept saying, "Well, you started the cult," and I was like, "Motherfucker, you were the one with internet access. We didn't know what we were doing. You got all the material." So
yeah, and that was the first introduction into occultism, into Satanism, and all that stuff was getting onto the internet, was researching things. And
it was very juvenile, right?
Yeah.
I mean, once again, we're like 14, 15 years old. And we just thought having topless girls around would be really cool.
Yeah, topless rituals. That's the
we
thing.
were like, man, how is this not our religion?
That was the attraction.
At 14, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Very juvenile, but it was it was still a rebellion, right? Because we were so sexually impressed too. Like the purity culture and standards.
I don't even know. You have to know this one, but this is for me. Like it just. I still don't know as an adult how I feel about this whole situation. But whenever I was around this time, I was about 15 years old, and it was on my birthday. I can't remember. I want to say it was my 15th birthday. My parents, who ended up becoming pastors and everything, took me out to dinner for my birthday, and my mom gave me a ring box at dinner, and I'm like, "What is this?" And I open it up, and it was a ring that had a heart with a key on it, and it was a purity ring. And my parents at 15 took me out on my birthday and gave me a purity ring, and like. What the fuck was that?
And it's ability. So this is automatically we know that something weird's happening right there. It doesn't jive right. And as even young men, we didn't know how to rebel against it. We just used our instincts and rebelled.
Right.
Fucking naked chicks, bad music. Yep. We had chapel every Wednesday, right? So we started having this thing where we'd stand together during chapel, and instead of singing the hymns and the praise and worship songs they had, we'd change the words.
To Satan. Satan, I worship you, instead of God, I worship you. And it just
our devil is an awesome devil, he reigns.
Right. That was our rebellion.
So did anybody catch on to that?
Well, and that's where the cult that got started within the school.
So there was probably about 12 of us that naturally like coalesced, right? Out of like this max 30 kids, half, maybe a little under half, are like, fuck this place, we'll join your cult. And at this point, we didn't even know, like, right? We're like, yeah, we got a cult.
Did you guys like announce, hey, you know what, we're starting a
Yes.
cult?
I think so.
No,
I think so.
Okay. I would like
to
to point out, as a matter of fact, there was literature put out, and that's how it was found out within the school, because Mr. Bryson found it was like, what'd you name the like Black Rose Society or something?
Oh God.
And he came to you and was like, I know you're doing witchcraft in the school. And we advertised it. And
so tell us how that conversation went.
Well, okay, and I think he's missing some important steps.
Probably.
He's missing some important steps in here. We formed this, and we got away with it for
a while,
months, maybe. Yeah, like at least like a quarter, right? 1 quarter of a school year for sure. We were legit active, maybe not satanic, but definitely like left-hand path, dark cult.
Rebellious.
Right? Rebellious,
sure, yeah.
Fuck the world, let it burn cult. And then we got busted on some of the material that we had been passing around.
My parents had found some of the occult material that I've been printing off.
And music.
And music. They found they had a bonfire in the backyard. Like literally, they got my stuff together, my CDs, my occult materials that I gathered.
Good old school burning.
Yeah, and they poured gasoline on it, and they lit that pile on fire. And so that was all.
Is that the only time that's ever happened to you?
No.
Me neither. I want to point out this is a weird other thing.
It didn't burn the witch.
Yeah, no.
Right, no, that's the point, though. They want you to see that, right?
Yeah.
Because it does harken back to those fucking witch
Absolutely.
burnings, right? And they want you to have that image of we're burning your shit to save your soul, and if you don't straighten up, you'll probably have to burn your other shit to save your soul. And it's happened to me. I can think of at least 2 or 3 separate times in my Christian career, in my younger years when I was trying to be a Christian, where people have come to me and said these things are evil. They've taken them from me and physically made me destroy them in front of them.
Well, and that was when I was trying to, be a part of the church and everything. I listened to like Christian rock, Christian rap, things like that, and I remember even with that. One of the Christian rap CDs that I had, they said the N-word, and my mom just lost her shit, and she was like, "You absolutely can't listen to that. That's of the devil." And I was like,
"Was it T-Bone?"
No, he didn't, because I believe he's of Hispanic descent. I believe
he might have,
but this was a group of African American males, and they said that, and my mom was just absolutely wasn't having it. She said it doesn't matter if they can say it or not or whatever.
Do you remember the name of the band?
It was the original Gospel Gangsters.
See, and the reason I asked too is because when we get into Travis is losing his shit.
Yeah, he is.
Gospel Gangsters,
yep,
bro.
Gospel Gangsters.
That's what we were into.
That's how I rolled.
Hey, you know Five Iron Frenzy? Insiders, man.
Yeah.
And that's why I bring it up. So there was this whole other subculture, right? Like even in Christian tradition, they were saying, you know, no secular music, no, whatever. And a lot of the time, the only way we could do it was to get to these cheesy ass fucking Christian artists to have any kind of semblance of the style and genres that, you know, appealed to us, whether it was metal. Do you remember Crimson Thorn?
Oh, yeah. No, the Crimson Thorn. There was a few, and my mom hated them too.
6 Feet Under. Oh, man. And it was pushing it because they were like, fucking Jesus is king.
Remember, you went on a road trip for Rackets and Drapes.
Yeah. No, that was a badass concert. If no one's ever listened to Rackets and Drapes, I still say that band is amazing. You should check them out. I drove to Bushnell, Illinois to see that Christian band, and it was fucking Bushnell, what's up? We tore it up to Jesus style. What?
So you guys are going down this path, and you got some media involved. You started listening to the music, and when did you guys know? I guess let me rephrase it. At what point did you guys start maturing into the Satanist you guys are today?
See, well, we got busted first before, and I think we shut down for a little bit because they kept us apart after that.
And so that's what I was kind of going to get into was it really things fell apart, and you and I weren't even allowed to be friends for a while. Like our parents kept us apart.
What was the principal's name?
Davy Ray.
Davy Ray. Davy Ray takes me into his office. He sits me down one day and he goes, and this is so weird. Look, I got my ass beat one time, literally with a closet pole for giving a cute little Christian girl a hickey, right? Got my ass beat with a closet pole. I started a satanic cult, a generalized cult in a Christian school, and this is the only conversation that's ever had about it. Michael, we understand everybody has a right to their own freedom of religion and stuff. We would just like you to not do it so much in the Christian school right now. And I was like, okay, let's just do that then. Not here, I guess. And they're like, okay. And it just went away. Swept it under the goddamn rug.
Absolutely.
And I don't know to this day if it was because, and I don't know how we were so organized. Like I said, it was quite a few kids.
But think about the PR. Just within the church. Just within the church.
If they had found out
what would the other parents? Okay, and here, so a little backstory on maybe why that happened the way it did was, I, like I said, had been at that school my entire, I lied in the beginning. I had not been there my entire schooling year. I got kicked out after 6th grade, and I had to go to 7th grade at Lee Summit Community Christian. They let me come back in 8th grade.
You still went to another Christian school.
I went to another Christian school, but
not much of a reprieve.
Whenever I got kicked out after 6th grade, it was because parents were threatening to sue the school if I stayed.
If we just talked about those stories, this would be a whole nother video. So we'll make a part 2 for that.
We won't, but so I had been in a lot of trouble in this school. I had been kicked out of the school. I'd been let back, and then I met him, and we started a cult together.
Just fire and gasoline.
Right, but there was parents previous to this, and their kids were still in the school that
might have been involved in the cult.
and I can confirm that they were, but that all got swept under the rug, and I do believe it's because parents had threatened previously to sue the school.
They knew what the outcome was going to be.
Right.
So when we talk about this is generally whenever, and some people have probably heard me talk about this a little bit, when I say the first cult I ever tried to create, that's the story of it. That was just us being
kids,
rebellious ass kids who didn't know why we were angry, but fucking knew we were damn for sure angry, you know, and when somebody needed to fucking pay for it. Now, like you said, that's they eventually, you didn't come back sophomore year. You went to Ray Peck, right?
Right. So after our freshman year, we We were not allowed to associate with each other.
Oh, they broke us the fuck apart.
And that's the thing. So we went to the same church.
Year.
The school was affiliated with the church that we went to. So we went to this church, and whenever we would show up to youth group, we would have to sit at separate sides of the youth group. We weren't allowed to associate in youth group. Our parents had talked to
no touching.
No touching, no nothing. So
just flirt of eye glances across the room.
Right.
I miss you.
Yeah.
That went on for
it was about
years.
a year. So what happened, and this is, and I don't know, because you weren't around so much. What happened in that time was my family left that church. They were upset with the leadership of that church. I left the school, so my parents cut ties with the whole church. And so they started shopping around for new churches. They didn't really find any that they liked. So my dad decided he was going to become a pastor. He opened up his own church. And I still continued to go to Grandview Assembly because I had gone there since I was like 6 or 7 years old. So I grew up with
everybody.
Right.
It was your community.
Well,
right?
And I wasn't allowed to have other friends outside of that church. My parents would not allow me to have be friends with people in the neighborhood that we lived in because they were all sinners and they were going to hell. And, so it could only be the people from the church or the school. So I continued to go to that church even after they left. I would get rides and stuff and go on, Wednesday night youth groups and stuff like that. But eventually, once my parents started their church and a few of the leadership members went over to their church, our youth pastor, Larry
fucking Crumpley. God, I hope you watch this one day, Larry.
He pulled me into his office and told me that I was no longer welcome in his church, that my parents had their own church. They've taken enough people, and I could go ahead and just go over there if I wanted to go to church anymore.
Let me jump in on a little bit of this betrayal here, too, because I share this with
I
was also kicked out of this church by Laramie Crumpley. And you have to understand, this man to us was a second father. This man was a powerful figure in our life who controlled a lot of the shit we did. He gave us validation or took it away. He gave us freedoms or he accused us of fucking atrocities.
Did you ever have one of your lunches with him? Did he ever? When you fucked up, he would take you out to lunch. And
we could talk about one of the worst.
No, there was never. He never got naked with us. Apparently, later in life, he exposed himself to a group of people or some woman. Some woman.
It was some way.
Allegedly.
I know. I think he got popped.
So
he did. But
lunch was okay.
Yeah, lunch was fine. He would literally
just
took
chew
us
your
out,
ass, read you the Bible, explain why you were a fuck up and why you needed to come back to God. And that's what he is, right? He's a con artist that sells guilt and fucking shame to keep you locked in and doing what he wants you to do, or what the church wants you to do on a broader scale, right? And that's the reason I bring it up. This man was so pivotally important in our formative years, being teenagers, trying to figure out how to be a decent person, how to survive in the world, what it takes to relate to other people. And this man preyed upon us. I don't know. I was
not
being
just
groomed
not
to
just
be a pastor.
Us,
he preyed on so many children.
Yeah,
so many children in this fashion. So he comes to you and he tells you can't come back. You've got your own church. Your parents, fuck off, right?
Yep.
And we don't see each other again, in my recollection, very much at least, until our senior year, right?
Well, and so from there, what I remember happening, I stopped. That was the last time I ever went to that church until about a year later. And I started going to my parents' church because at that point I was 15, going to turn 16. So I still, I was getting rides to go to Grandview Assembly. Yeah. So I had to go with my parents to their church. So once I got my license, though, I was more free to do what I wanted as long as I went to a church. There were some more like Metro Vineyard or Metro Christian or whatever it was next door.
Next door. Yeah.
They were a more liberal, church. So I liked.
And it was funny because in Grandview Assembly, there was kind of this pall over that place that, they're not real Christians.
Yep, absolutely. So, and once I got my license, I started going to that church a little bit more and to some more of their events and stuff. And there was people there that you knew, that you were friends with. So like I was able to kind of find out how you were doing and stuff because some people knew you there. But what happened was the youth pastor's daughter, Larry Crumpley's daughter, Charla, got a hold of me one day.
Charla.
And I don't remember how this all happened, but she got a hold of me and said, we're doing a special event at the church. It's a movie viewing, this, that, and the other. I'd really like for you to come. And I told her your dad said I'm not allowed to be there. She said, no, we'd like for you to come. And I thought, oh, that's weird. But, I'd like to see my friends. I haven't seen these people.
This was the night, right?
This was the night. So
I can't say this is one of my favorite stories because, and I don't think a lot of people understand when I say I literally owe my life to this man. I mean it in multiple fashions. I mean it on a physical level. He's literally hidden me from cops. I mean it on a spiritual level because of times like
brothers do.
This is what brothers do. And look, we've had it out, right?
Yeah.
We've had times where we were not fucking happy with each other.
Absolutely.
But it's what brothers do. And this story is one of them that just, it seriously, my pollen might act up a little bit. Do you want to tell her or do you want me to?
I can tell it to the point that
so you're about to show up at movie night,
right? So it ended up being.
Here, let me backstory. So why he's been off at this other church, I've really invested myself, and people, pastors gotten to me, he's talking to me, and he's like, "You need to be a man of God." They start prophesying over me. They start grooming me to become a pastor. I had a college picked out. It was Rhema Bible College in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. It's right outside of Tulsa, I think. I had mentors in the church. Emily Storms. Do you remember Emily?
Absolutely, yeah.
Miss Emily Storms. Fuck, if she was alive and heard me call her Emily Storms, she would have knocked me out.
Absolutely.
Miss Emily Storms was my spiritual grandmother, and that woman still called me into my fucking 20s, and she was like 900 when I was a teenager.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people from that time and from those different churches and stuff that I still deeply respect, and they were good people, but I think a lot of people were brainwashed.
Emily had a crazy story. She was a black woman that grew up in World War II in Kansas City. And the level of racism and stuff that I can't even fathom that some of the stories she told me were insane. And I don't necessarily hate this time in my life. I do hate where it could have gone, and I'm glad I got out of it. But at that time, I was reading the Bible. I was trying to do what they said that I had to do to become that person, to fulfill that mission in my life.
Be that good godly man.
Be that good godly man. Stand up for something, right? And that appeals to people on a base level, right? So I spent these years, but right up to this night, and I remember it was one of those apocalypse ones.
It was the Left Behind. It was the very first Left Behind movie. And that's what the youth pastor's daughter. It was the world premiere of the Left Behind, and they absolutely wanted me to come because right. It was.
It was huge in Christian.
So we'll put aside whatever differences or whatever to bring you closer to God.
So and leading up to this movie and stuff, maybe that year before it, like shit's falling apart. Had I already moved out of my mom's by then? I think I had.
I don't know at that point. I know when we met that night, you had moved out of your mom's.
Yeah, I'd said so. Look, I stopped going to high school. I was homeschooled, right? Like I still say that my last solid year of traditional education was 8th grade. And that's an honest observation to how my educational career went. Right now, I didn't leave it at traditional education. I picked it up myself afterwards, but it's the truth of it. During this period, I was so mind washed and told that I had to be God's servant, that I had to follow this path, that none of that mattered. Jesus was coming back. Right? None of that mattered. All of it was fake. It was immaterial. There was something so much more, and I had to pursue that. But it started unraveling. I was questioning things. Things were happening that I didn't agree with. Laramie Crumpley would say things that I just couldn't rectify things about LBGT. And I said this on our last live, where I haven't talked a lot about the fact that I'm bisexual, even though I'd been experimenting even since I was a teenager. And he would say things, and I, would register with him. I'm like, he's talking about me. He thinks I'm an abomination. These things were unraveling, and I'm sitting at this fucking movie, and I remember probably sitting next to Gina, something like that. Something like that. Some of our little Christian crew there. And this guy fucking walks in out of nowhere like an angel, kicks open the fucking church door, struts down the aisles, sits next to me, and he used to wear this big poofy FUBU coat. It was, I'm talking about like the 90s puff coats.
Yeah.
And he comes down and he hits, and I remember hearing like it deflate, like, that psh, when the coat compresses a little bit. But then out of that compression, I just smell weed, like through the whole aisle. And I'm like, what's up, buddy? I haven't seen you in like fucking forever. And I really, in my mind, I remember it this quick. He was like, ooh, this place blows. Do you want to leave? And I was like, with you? And he's like, yeah, let's get out of here. And I was like, fuck yeah. And that was it.
And at that point,
we were gone.
You guys never went back?
No.
I went back to church one more time, and that's a sad story, but
yeah, that was, so I sat down and he just, and I would like to say at this point, he was still pretty innocent. He wasn't
I hadn't smoked weed. I hadn't.
Yeah. So he knew what it was, but he didn't know. And so there was a couple other people around, and they started going, what's that smell? What is that? And that's when I was like, I started, getting a little paranoid. I said,
like, oh, I gotta go.
Hey, you want to go ahead and get out of here? And I mean, the movie had maybe just started. Like, I don't even know if
it wasn't very long in, for sure. I don't even know if it was. I think it might have just been still waiting for people. Like, we
got up and we burnt out of there. And I rescued him that night. And
that's what and we didn't look back. We ran off, and that led to our second cult, which really wasn't even really a cult. I guess it was more of like a traditional coven mixed with a criminal organization.
Jesus. Yeah.
Is that more of an accurate statement?
We weren't. I was saying, but we weren't so much the criminals. There were.
So some petty thefts. Okay. Anyway,
sometimes you got to do what you got to do to survive. But
it's a rough world out there. We all be.
Because and then at that point, but really the whole point of that is you say you left your mom's house. You were kicked out of your mom's house.
No, I don't. That's not exactly right. What my mom wasn't okay. Like, we didn't even cover this that 9th grade year when we first met, when all this happened. Let me put this preface on you. My mother was so indoctrinated to being taken by the church and thought that I was on the path to evil and ruin so much that I was literally in solitary confinement that entire 9th grade year. And that's not a joke. My mother literally took everything out of my room except for the sheet on my bed and 2 pairs of clothes, one regular, one dress clothes. And that PACE program that he was talking about, at the end of each of these work booklets, there's a test. And if you completed the entire workbook and I got a test back and it was over an 80% or whatever, I could buy one item back for my room. And those booklets took like what, a week?
About, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't small. We're talking like 40, 45 pages of math problems or history to read and, digest.
And then take a test about it.
I literally, the only outlet I had in 9th grade was to go to school and act out, because as soon as I got home, I was locked in a literal vacant room that entire year. Sad but true.
Sad but true.
Don't do that to your children, folks.
Yeah.
sounds like abuse.
Pretty fucked up. So, but that was, you basically, you had that, done to you. And then, you weren't really welcome, by your mom after that. And that was, I had done what I had done.
That was the point of the sad story, right? Was that there was at one point my mom was holding me down towards my senior year. And I said, fuck it. I called Grandview Police Station, and I had to have been like almost 17, maybe just 16. And I called them and I said, hey, if I leave home, can you take me back? And he goes, how old are you? And I'm like, 17. And he goes, yeah, if you're 17, we're not coming for you. And I packed up the car, called Jay Wellman. He came over in his fucking Do you remember what was it he had?
It was something little.
A Toyota Tercel or some stupid shit. And we just started shoving crap in it. And oh man, it was a rough time. But that was breaking out of church.
Right. And that's when I end up meeting back up with you.
Mm-hmm.
We went, because we left the church, we went and did whatever we did that night, and I took you to Jay's house.
Yep.
And so you were already
so I was out of my mom's house.
So you were already living there.
Like I said, it all had started coming down. And I just was questioning. I didn't know what to do. So in the fashion that has become me, I just burn everything to the fucking ground and walk away.
Well, and that's, not quite, but, once I was getting ready to turn 17. I was still 16. And my parents had went out of town, and I had some people over, and we were smoking weed in the house, and one of their church friends came over to check on me, I guess, and saw the people in the house, saw the weed, whatever. So my parents get back in town, and my dad he's an old man, so you're just a dirty dope smoker, and I can't trust you, and this, that, and the other. And so I ended up leaving pretty shortly after that. I packed my stuff up, and I went and lived with a sibling, an older sibling, for a while, and until I was 17, and then I moved in with my uncle. And
Uncle Dennis. God damn, that was a great time.
And that was when we were able to actually
start really blossoming,
yes,
right? Because
absolutely.
Okay, so now
Uncle
we're
Dennis
moving
didn't give a fuck.
into the second phase of kind of our occult organization.
And this is when I was able to purchase a Satanic Bible. I was 17. We went to Aquarius down in Westport.
Plug Aquarius. If you haven't been to Aquarius, is Kansas City's biggest metaphysical store. It's down off Broadway. Broadway.
Yeah,
go,
like 40th
go check
and
out
Broadway.
Aquarius. We know some folks out there. They're fucking awesome. So.
Yep, great place. Bought my first Satanic Bible there. I was about 17. Got my first Satanic Bible, and then that's when we were like, what is this about? What are we going to do here? Where are we going to go?
Some of my first memories, like moving into this second phase cult, right? And like I said, it was I said it was traditional, but it was still very juvenile, right? It was still we
were 17,
Well, yeah, and I think we kind of held it into our mid 20s, right?
Oh yeah.
And we did.
So was it still was it more individually, or did you guys really bring groups together?
So we had a small, tight group, I would say, right?
Yeah, we had a small group, and I wouldn't say that like we were trying to recruit people, make people Satanists, or even like trying to start a cult or anything like that with them. It was more, we had friends, we had our beliefs, and we all kind of meshed well.
It was more of a secret society, right? We gave each other honoraries.
Everybody kind of had their own views and beliefs and stuff within this group, but everybody was pretty accepting of each other.
And really, what it was a bunch of young folks once again who have broken away from adolescence and from control of their parents and stuff, and at this point are going buck wild, right? So, what did we do as occultists? We experimented with drugs, polyamory. We amped it up from what we thought we were going for, in those early high school days, and we really started hitting that. Well, let's explore all these things, and like you said, we weren't really recruiting or anything. It's like if you just there were a couple other there were a couple other crews, and there were a couple other people out there, right? There were other groups. You remember House of Woo?
Oh yeah.
House of Woo. So there were these other kind of occultist like subgroups and cliques that were together, right? And we'd associate or rival with. We did that. Yeah, no, seriously, you smile. It's
it was a fun time.
It made us feel good, right? It made us feel important. Oh, we're it's tribalism, right?
Yeah. We have more friends over here in this house on this side. We're better than you guys.
Fuck those guys, because they
don't know what they're talking about.
They've never read that obscure book,
right?
And it worked, but as all things, when you have something like that, and it's not very stabilized, and there's not really a mass goal for the entire group, right?
No, you're just having fun.
Yeah, it's going to eventually just kind of dissolve out. People are going to go on their own way. They'll get tired of partying, or they'll OD. We've seen some shit. But that was, and it was really, I mean, we experimented with Satanism, we experimented with paganism, we really dove out and just broadened that first sense that we did in high school, kind of for, like you said, for our own.
Right. So it was more, it was kind of knowledge seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That was the thing. I felt like I had been lied to my whole life. And so I wanted to find the truth, whatever that truth was, it didn't necessarily have to be Satanism. It didn't necessarily have to, it could have been anything, but I wanted to find what my truth was. At least,
that's, and we just kept digging, right? Digging.
Mm-hmm. What did you find? What did you find? Now you look back, what did you find?
It's all bullshit.
But the road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom is what I found. Is that we tried everything. We dibbled into everything. And that ultimately, when it came back to it, it was still just all so mundane.
Right. So mundane. But really, what it all, at least for me, what it comes back to is that seeking knowledge for yourself, that responsibility for self, that, taking responsibility for the things that you do, you say, where you go in life. Mm-hmm. And that really, it comes back to Satanism. And I just feel like Satanism is just a default,
When we get into that, then we're leading up to the grotto right now. We did all this in our 20s and people came and go and it just kind of fell apart. It was a natural thing. Those ties change. People move away. Shit happens. It just kind of naturally, it was never meant to be an organized thing, right? So it just kind of naturally fizzled the way it does. And then I kind of, after this period of time, feel a little more disillusioned. I'm more of a militant atheist, right? I've lost a baby at this point in my life. Yeah. My youngest son's been murdered, right? I've got serious doubts about the forces of the universe and their existence and whether we're all just random bullshit and breaking down with entropy, right? It's weighing on me fucking hard. And I'm not very functional as a person, I would say. And this is leading into our 30s.
Yeah, no, it really, I don't want to say like, I was worried about you, bud. But,
no, you can say no. There's some times in my life people were worried about me.
Yeah, you were definitely depressed and
often
just not happy with your life. And
I used to use this a lot, and some of my ex-girlfriends or my ex-wife probably would cringe when they hear me say it. There was times I would just sit there and I'd just be like, I have no way to express what I am right now besides discontent. I am discontent and I do not know how to resolve this. And I leaned into work.
Yeah.
I think we both did at different points, and we've had ups and downs in careers and shit like that. And that's a whole nother story. But we once again kind of went with that social norm. Like, okay,
what does a man do?
Yeah,
what
make
are
money,
we supposed to
fucking
do?
Carry guns, whatever. Whatever it is. Like now we're moving on to this new evolution of it. But I'm still so discontent, and I'm a pretty militant atheist, and I'm angry about it. I'm like, how fucking dare you say anything about pain and sorrow? How fucking don't you fucking bring that around me? And then this motherfucker starts throwing me for a loop.
And
we were working at the same place again by this. We've shared jobs off and on before.
Right. And the job that we had afforded me a lot of free time. I worked nights and I was able to really start reading again and getting back into just trying to research why I hated life. What's wrong with me?
And that's the first thing I started noticing. And what was this? Was it probably 2018, 2019?
So in 2017, I believe is when I read Dr. Daryl Ray's book. Well, and both of his books, the God Virus and God and Sex.
Shout out to Daryl Ray.
Yes, absolutely.
And Recovering from Religion. Check both that shit out and check out Dr. Ray's books. Literally, that could be a whole nother video here of me seriously. Just crying. Like, Dr. Ray broke me. Why did he teach me psychology? I don't like it.
An amazing man, amazing books,
amazing friend to the Grotto. He's actually taken some stuff too, but please go ahead. So you're reading these books,
and that's I started to realize that the religion that had been indoctrinated into me, through my whole life was still there, no matter,
still causing damage,
right? Still causing damage. It doesn't matter that, I tried to be rebellious back then, that I, did this or that. I didn't work on me, I didn't try and figure out what
those wounds were not worked on. Yeah,
no, not at all.
We armored up against the damage, but we never took the time to heal the wounds from that trauma. And that's a mistaken youth, right? A lot of people, at least in our generation, I feel like there's kind of that. You're like, fuck what happened. Just be ready for more.
Right. Yep. No, it's basically, as a man, it's a constant war zone. You always got to be on alert and be ready. And, I'm a man and I could take anything and whatever. But, at some point, some of us break down. And that was where I was at. And it was just, I hated life. I hated myself. I hated everything. And, reading some of these books and figuring out that a lot of this was the religious trauma, the indoctrination, that had been there my whole life. And going back and thinking about specifically what was said, what was done, and trying to, let that go and try and, not even rationalize it, just now it's there. I know that that's why I am or why I think this way. I need to try and, get
once you acknowledge it, then you can start to redirect it, right?
Right.
Once you understand those processes. And that's what I wanted to say is during this time, so he's working like night shift, I'm working day shift. We see each other in passing. We're leaving each other on shifts, right? And he'd be lugging in these fucking books. I'm talking like Charles Dawkins, like encyclopedia size fucking books on evolution and the meaning of life and all these different things.
Well, that was the Aaron Raw book, fundamental. What was it? Oh man, I can't even think what it is.
He ate it. And I'll have to say
it was so dry and boring, but it had a lot of good information, and it really and the thing was I didn't just read things on and how to improve myself and my feelings and whatever. It was things that I missed out on in my childhood being raised in a Christian school.
Science.
Science. I never had real science and stuff.
Anthropology of what humans actually are and how we function. It was so skewed for us that we had to retrain ourselves.
Right. So we're talking 5 years ago is when I finally decided, I was like, I'm going to try and see what the world's about and whatever. So, and that really, again, just kind of opened it back up to the whole Satanism thing. Once you start really dealing with yourself, and
I still believe that you're born a Satanist, and once you know that, it's hard to get past. No matter where you go, at some point you're going to come back and you're going to recognize these archetypes, right? As humans, we recognize patterns, and a pattern that makes sense to us, we're going to recognize more. So it makes sense that something so resonated with us, even through all the other stuff we've done and everything, still always comes back to us and takes us back to that level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the loudest, things in my life that just always has came back and has always just spoken true to me, So
that leads us up, and that's, I guess, from here on, like people who don't know us prior to the Grotto, we were part of the Satanic Temple for a while.
Yes.
We were at least what at the time they called a Friends of group. And they part of the Satanic Temple's whole shtick, at least in my opinion. Let me just go ahead and say everything from this point on out is our opinion and not representative of anybody else, including the Satanic Temple COS or any other asshole who wants to sue us. But I remember, like, you were busting my balls. You're like, and we're both Levian, right? At this point, there are Levians, and we don't even go, we're just Satanists, right? Because Levians kind of cornered that market and said no one else can be it. And no one else really stood out against it except for maybe Temple of Set and a couple others that never really thrived after.
Right.
Or at least in my opinion and my experience at the time.
Well, they definitely weren't local.
Yeah, you couldn't walk down the street and find a local COS chapter for fucking sure. And
we tried when we were teenagers.
Oh yeah,
you know, we were like, "Where's this
Grotto,
satanic church at?" You know,
the name the Satanic Grotto is a play off that too, and I'll talk about that here in a minute too. But it is an homage not only to the Satanic Temple but to COS, because in Kansas City we were so desperate to find some great satanic wizard to teach us that we had these local rumors of where there might be a grotto
and
we were always off Ricky Road in Raytown, and we were always looking for it. So there you go, secrets behind the name of the grotto. So we're traditional LaVey. We've read the Satanic Bible. We've read the Satanic Witch. We've read LaVey material, right? And then this guy comes to me, and like I said, this has to be like early 19.
Yeah, this is by now it's about 19.
Yeah, early 19, and he goes, "Hey, I watched this movie. It's a documentary on Satanists or whatever. It's called hailsatan." And he goes, "It's by some people called the Satanic Temple or whatever." And I had remembered reading some Google article that just popped up or whatever, because it knows I like Satanism, where these silly Satanists had went down and tried to put up a statue somewhere, right? And I remember thinking to myself, reading the article, "Oh, silly Satanists, I'm glad they're having fun." And then I just moved on with my life, right? Didn't think about it. So he's like, "Watch this fucking documentary." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get to it," right? And I didn't.
No,
it took like
it made me mad, because and here's the thing, you know, I even watching that movie and stuff, there were still elements of it that I agree with him. I was like, "Oh, silly Satanists and whatever," but like some of what the core that they were talking about, and the actually, you know, you have the Christians that are, "Oh, you need to be like Jesus," or whatever, but then they don't care about the poor, they don't care about, you know, anybody, right? And I thought, you know, this group is at least, you know, they're trying to help people
They're doing something, right?
There's some sort of, you know, mission statement. They're doing some things. They're cleaning parks up. They're
and I can
helping
attest to their inspiration on you, because that's what got me to watch the movie. Was over like that 6 months from when he first said, "Hey, you should watch this movie," and I was like, to when I actually watched it. He was eating these books every day. He was reading. We were having these really in-depth conversations in the morning where and like, this is a high, like, industrial work zone full of very toxic, masculine Republican men, right? And we're like hugging and crying, like, "I know. Yeah, it's not our fault. And guess what? It's not our mom's fault either. It's all fucked up."
Seriously, in the middle of the break room, you know, I would work the night shift and he would come in and relieve me. And we would have this overlap. And so I would stay in the mornings, you know, for about an hour and talk with him. And we would just sit in the break room, and the guys that would come in for the morning shift would come in that break room to like put their lunches away or do whatever. And they would pop their head in and just shake their head and like, "Nope," and shut that door and walk away. You know?
But so I see, right, that something is changing in him. I can see, and he's once again, he's really excited about Satanism again. And that's I've gone through fluxes in my life, especially as a younger man, where I was afraid to be an out and about Satanist. I even remember one time with my ex-wife, there were these fucking Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever came to the door, right? And they kept knocking and kept knocking, wouldn't go away. And she finally threw open the door and she goes, "Don't come back to this fucking house. We're full of witches and Satanists." And slams the door. And I was like, for a moment, I panicked. I was like, "Babe, you can't tell people I'm a Satanist. You don't know what that might," you know, there was that innate fear in there.
They might come for you.
Yeah.
Burn you at the stake.
So I had been up and down. And like I said, I was fairly a militant atheist with probably a lot of Anton LaVey jargon in my head.
Probably a lot.
A fair amount of Anton LaVey jargon in my head. But I see him going through these changes, and I mean, it resonates with how can I not recognize what this guy I've known fucking for
25 years now, going on 26 years.
He's outlasted every woman I've ever been with.
Same with him.
I see these changes, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to watch this video. And I do. I was sitting at home with my current, the Dark Lord, and my son, and we're watching it or whatever. And my kid's like, "This is really cool." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, it is." He was like, "Are you gonna do this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I gotta go back and talk to fucking Mikey." And I've always kind of wanted to ask you this because I remember you coming to me at one point after I'd watched it. I told you I watched it. It did make an impact on me. I think there's something to this. This really appeals to me for some reason. And you basically said, you need to fucking organize this.
Yeah.
And I don't, why did you say that to me? What did you think about me that you were like this fucking guy?
Because you have always, like, since the day I met you, you've always been that person. I'll say whatever. I don't care. I'll say things and I'll back myself up, if I need to or whatever. But whatever it is about you, people listen. People stop.
It's probably how loud I cuss.
And you don't piss people off. I piss people off.
Yeah. I piss people off.
Well,
too,
okay.
I try to.
Right. You don't piss as many people off as I do. Okay.
Out of the two of us, I piss off the less people.
Right.
And therefore.
So that was, you've always been that person that people listen to, that you've always had that charisma. I know it's gross, but if you think about it, okay, you were prophesied over in church that you were going to be a leader, that you were going to preach to people, that you were
indoctrinated into that position, honestly.
Right. Well, and what could it? And I can even attest to it's easy. They recognize that maybe perhaps I do have a set of innate intuition for doing certain things, right? And that's what they preyed upon. They go, those are the key signals we're looking for. I do like the prophecy, though. We didn't mention this, and I just like bragging about myself. The prophecy giving to me is, you will do great works and save a lot of people for God, or damn them to Satan.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Thanks for that one, bro. I'm gonna chalk that one up. So
you started a chapter of TST.
We started. So this
started the process of starting a chapter.
Started the process, and that's the thing with TST, and we're going to get into it. For you TST members who like the organization and you appreciate what they do, hey, I want you to know I am fully with you. I think that TST attracts wonderful, enthusiastic people.
Is this a disclaimer?
This is another disclaimer, yes. Wonderful.
But honestly, there are a lot of people within that organization that are good people.
Yeah, there are good people in that organization. Now, there's a reason the Grotto is an independent organization after trying to be a chapter of TST. And it's because we didn't agree with a lot of what happened. And I had direct experience with some of the upper leadership in TST and was really off-put and disturbed by some of the stuff I saw and the way they handled certain things. And that pushed us into, but that's getting the cart before the horse. We haven't even become a TST group yet. And that's what we called ourselves, the Kansas City Satanic Grotto. A whole fucking mouthful was the very first thing I ever typed up. And once again, I was like, well, we want the Satanic Temple. Boom, got that part. But we can't say the temple or whatever because we're not the fucking temple. And I'm kind of an old school COS guy. Mm-hmm. They had a grotto system. We had this history of always looking for this fictional grotto that was around Kansas City. It just made sense to me. And what sounds
absolutely
fucking cooler? Do you want to hang out at a temple or do you want to fucking rock and roll at a grotto?
Grotto all day.
Grotto all day. I can't believe they didn't catch that off the bat and just do that. So you're around for quite a bit of at least all the early stuff,
right? I ended up having some personal issues come up.
We all did. Everybody in this damn group has. That's
and that So that took me away during the process, during the setting up and everything. I was there, but during the actual process and then the kind of fallout and stuff, I wasn't around so much.
Right.
But yeah. Leading up to, I was there.
So that's we obviously have known each other for years. We talked about how we worked together when he was like first finding out about TST and watched the Hailsatan documentary. And the reason we were working together is because I had bullied my way into the union. I have sort of a history of being rebellious, not only in school, but at work. And I've run a couple union campaigns to unionize stuff. And regardless of what you think about unions or whatever, that's not the point of this. So, whatever, be capitalist, I don't care.
Right.
The point is, I started learning from these union guys and training myself on community organization. And that's generally, even to this day, I don't think of myself as like a priest or a pastor or any of this. I am a community organizer.
Right,
Satanists don't need a priest, right? That's maybe you do. I don't need a fucking priest, and I don't know a lot of other ones who are demanding one either. So we've tried to set ourselves up in a way where we don't need that, and that's part of that's being a community. We're all community organizers. So I started working on this. I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to bridge gaps between people who normalized wouldn't work together. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't have a common goal and they would never know each other. I help bridge those gaps, even sometimes big gaps, to affect a change and affect a community involvement into something. And I've been working on this, trying to get union votes. It was very technical, and it was hard for me to translate into becoming a community organizer outside of flat goals, right? So in a union, I could say, I want this much money an hour, I want this many days off, and we're going to fight for this, and this is what we're combating for. Well, when you're organizing with Satanists, it's not so cut and dry, right? There's not these solid objectives. The Grotto's objectives, what do? We facilitate religious expression. We promote artists. We provide a safe environment for our members to grow and learn. All right, these aren't hardcore measurable things. I mean, you can come up with systems for it, but they're always shifting. They're always growing. And it was hard to translate from one organization to another. And you said you're the guy to do it. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying.
And really, when you asked earlier, what made you say you should be the one to lead this? And also, this is part of it. You have some of that experience through these years of organizing unions and, trying to organize, different things at different jobs. So you not only have that draw or whatever, that charisma, but you also have have experience.
Now, I want to point out most of that experience ended in failure. And that's, you learn more from your mistakes than you do your successes, right? So I've learned a lot from them, and I'm no longer actively doing union stuff now because I put so much effort into the Grotto. That's it's a shift I had to make. And it's interesting to go from that kind of a structured process to creating an environment where people get to grow and interact and accomplish something without letting that fall apart, right?
So how did that translate into going towards TST and trying to create that group, that Friends of Kansas group?
So I think it definitely gave me like a single-mindedness when I decided to do it, right? He talks me into it. He goes, figure it out. He's like, don't fucking, don't be a loser. Go out there and do it. So I start doing some research and stuff. And I was very single-minded. My fiance, Maynard, will tell you I worked so hard on it that there were days she would go, this is not a Satan day. We're not talking about Satan. You can't be on the internet with Satan. You can't listen to Satan music. I need you here and doing chores. I'm like, okay. And I did. I just applied that drive to reaching out and making connections and networks, right? I figured out who was who. I got online and just started stalking people.
It's research.
It's research, right? So I connected with a man outside of Colorado, or in Colorado, who used to be he was the chapter head for Colorado, and then he moved on to be into the International Council back when that was a thing. And I'll also credit, I don't know what TST does now. I don't keep up with them anymore, not like that. So this is all retroactive. I don't think they use these
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Some
three,
4.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're at 19 now, somewhere around 2019.
Going on to
almost 4 years.
Yeah,
almost.
by the end of this year, it'll be 4.
Yeah, so we're getting into it.
Yeah.
Wow, God, it's been a minute. So I reach out to this guy in Colorado, and I don't even know that he's on what is then the International Council. And the International Council pretty much reported directly to old Doug and
Lucian.
Lucian and Malcolm Jerry, who are Doug and Calvin.
Yeah.
If you didn't know,
Do your research.
do your research. We won't get it. There's all kinds of stuff we talk about. That's not. We're going to talk about the relationship between the Grotto and TST, and that's going to kind of be our focus. I don't want to beat a dead horse with a bunch of shit. But I reach out to this guy. Turns out he's from Kansas City, or at least has some connections to Kansas City pretty hard. So I'm able to lean into that, talk to him. He kind of gets me into the TST inner world, right? I just bug him and I'm like, come on, buddy, Kansas City barbecue. Just panning it up. And he finally lets me in. And I get to talk to the person running the FOG program, the Friends of group. We're talking Amber. Her name is Amber.
Sorry.
Amber was rough. Amber and I got along sometimes, and I think a lot was asked of Amber. In retrospect, there was a time I probably would have talked pretty mean on her, but now in retrospect, in knowing things that I know now,
Right. I mean, she was responsible for the country.
there we go. It was
TST.
insane. The whole. We'll get into that part. So I get hooked up with Amber. Amber runs the FOG program, and I'm given pretty steep odds. Amber has already cut off new chapters from being introduced. I didn't know at this time Kansas has had 3 separate chapter attempts going on in it. I wasn't aware of this. I didn't know that they had already been organized in Wichita once before, in Kansas City once before. And then there was a loose kind of a broader internet collection of them that I came across later too. And these are all kind of red flags that start building up in my process to working with TST. The first thing I notice is, a lot of people have tried this and it keeps failing. But you know what? I'm a smart guy. I bet you I can beat the system.
Well, you did develop a Friends of group, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked to Amber. We don't immediately get along. But she does. I'm relentless. I'm a very relentless person. I think my mom put it one way. Like, if I decide to do something, it's probably either jail or dead that's going to dissuade me from doing that thing.
And jail doesn't usually dissuade you.
Jail can kind of a little bit. I'm getting older. It's starting to dissuade me more and more. At any rate, so the deadline had already been met. Amber didn't want to give us a group. She didn't want Kansas to have another group. I think it had failed for her enough times that she didn't think there was a strong enough engagement out there to sustain it. So they gave us the highest threshold that we had to meet, and it was pretty impossible. They told us to model ourselves after Colorado. And Colorado had broken the state up into specific areas, and you couldn't be concentrated. So I live near Kansas City. I live near Lawrence, but I can't have it just segregated to that zone, right? I have to have members that I can account for across multiple cities to represent all of Kansas. I'm like, Oh, okay.
Well, and there's not multiple cities across Kansas.
Right. Well, I mean,
There's Kansas City and there's Wichita.
yeah.
And then there's the rest of Kansas, which doesn't
There
account for
are
a
a
lot.
few. It's not a lot. There's a couple college towns. Lawrence is a good college town. Manhattan. Thank
And
you.
you got Topeka-ish.
You know what? We actually have more and more popping off in Topeka. Topeka is a very rough city, and I've been trying to organize there for a long time. And it's funny because their code's 666, isn't it? And I was just like, come on, there's going to be some fucking Satanists in Topeka. They're a couple, but they're skittish. Where was I at? Okay, so Amber tells me we've got to organize
the whole state.
the whole fucking state. I'm like, God damn. But we'd already built up a base, right?
Right. There was a good base. And actually in Wichita, I mean,
We found,
there was quite a few in Wichita that, it surprised me that was as big of a group as it was or it is. And,
so organizers, take a couple quick notes here. I'm going to give you the secret of how I pulled this many cities together. And I did. By the time that we were at the height of the FOG, we were getting very close to getting our own chapter, to get that official fucking stamp of who we were. We were organized in Kansas City, we were organized in Lawrence, we were organized in Wichita. I had been working on Topeka. We at least had people reaching out from multiple little, all the way down. What's the one south? Emporia. We've had people out that way reach out to us. I mean, there was a need for this that I could see, and that kind of helped feed it too, right? There's a need for it, but there was a technique I used. I realized there were all these failed groups, non-functioning groups, specifically online, but local. It's like, spooky people of Hayes, Kansas, group or whatever. So I remember that stupid movie about fucking Facebook guy Zuckerberg. What's that movie?
I never watched it.
You never watched it? Okay, so in the movie, Zuckerberg built Facebook because he would go to wherever MySpace was, right? And then he would take over all the cities around whatever that big city was. And eventually, everybody around that hub started using this other product, and that central hub would collapse. So I get to thinking about this, right? I go to all these old groups, and I started being that outlier, keep reaching out. Hey, is this group not working for you? Hey, is anybody here who's in charge of this group? And then befriend those people and just keep building that network. And I call it the Zuckerberg effect. I don't know if it's a real thing, but I just strategically kept going from place to place, looking where the hub was and trying to catch around the rim until it catches fire, right? You just keep connected, keep inviting people. Oh, and we invited so many. God, oh my God. We were running so hard. Mm-hmm. That year.
It was
TST year.
And with the TST endorsement, you have a lot of at least internet traffic. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of people and that were coming to,
and that ultimately helped the growth of the Grotto. I won't deny it, and that's regardless of my feelings of TST and how it's run or any of that. They did help get this rolling. That name brand was recognizable. It was easy to capitalize on. And we wanted it. We were on fire. We were hot for it. Like I said, we were, by the end of it, we got our FOG status like right at Thanksgiving, I think. So somewhere right around Thanksgiving. And I was like, fuck yeah. I remember by January the next year, we were going. One weekend we had a social in Kansas City. One weekend we had a social in Lawrence. Next weekend we had a social in Wichita. The fourth weekend we did online, and it was every fucking week. And I mean, we were driving this. You've been on a few. Travis has been on a few.
It was fun, but man, it's rough.
No,
it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and we were happy to do it because we believed that TST was on to something.
We had a mission at that point, right?
Yeah.
We believed in something. We wanted to make it happen.
And we wanted to make it happen. And what we believed in was that we could actually have a community of Satanists that are organized and working for goals, right?
So what changed?
Well, so when I met the guy from Colorado who got me in, one of the quotes that he gave me, he was like, this is really an opportunity to define what Satanism means for Kansas. And I remember that sticking with me. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's exactly what we want to do as a community. Let us make the definition. He goes, this is super. And he even said it, look, he's like, we're Satanists. There are going to be rules. Don't fucking get caught. That's what Satanists do, right? Like, fucking, if you can bend the rules and get away with it, that's how you fucking make this thing work. Just make it work. And I'm like, all right, man, I'm on this. And we did. We fought and we made it work. And then when we started getting big traffic, like every meeting, every social we had, 20 plus people every week. We were raising money for TST just on like birthday drives. I'd put one out one year and I think I did $500 in like easy, like a day. Like it met the goal or whatever. And it was just because local Satanists, we were all excited. Somebody was finally fucking doing something. Somebody was finally going to say, you could go out and do something. And there was a hunger for that.
Right. And there was, with TST, it's about making a difference. And that's what, there's so many people here that want to make a difference, legitimately want to help and make a difference. And, and that it's great. But, these people were trying to tap into something that just wasn't.
Well, and this is to answer your question about when that started to turn. As we're into this process, and I'm just running, and not just me, we had a whole state council, and please don't this was not just me. We had 7 people on our state council at one point, and we had representatives from each of the big cities. And what we did was we modeled it as a smaller structure as TST was doing for the national level. Makes sense, right? We're going to do the same thing here you're doing here. And we'd go through that, and then they would check in on us, and they'd go, holy fuck, these guys are organized. They're doing things. They're actually, and then they would lose their mind. It's all right. That's so.
Two.
And it was especially. I think I probably stressed Amber out. She would come in and check on us or whatever, and and there were all kinds of meetings beyond the meetings I'm doing with the members. Right, we would get online and do what they called organizer town halls, and it was all these FOG groups from all over the United States. Like literally, probably 100 people in here, 2 organizers each. Fucking state, right? Or roughly. And so start getting more red flags, right? I'm in this meeting, in several of these meetings, and at this point I'm starting to read organizer material. I'm leaving just the Union School of Thought, and I'm expanding. I'm reading Rules for Radicals. I'm reading Community Creative Organizing. I'm reading all these books that Dr. Darrell Ray's throwing at me. He's like, read this fucking book, read this fucking book, read this fucking book, dummy. And I'm like, okay. And I'm catching them all. And as I'm reading them, I'm immediately recognizing these red flags that these books are warning me about cults of personality, about practices that will undo a community or aren't helpful to the local community as much as pulling away from it. These things start clicking with me, and I'm watching them and I'm going, this is wrong. This isn't. So now I'm stressed, right? Because we've got dozens of members looking at us going, you're promising us something great. You've promised us something great. TST is always going to deliver something great, right? And I'm like, hey, shit. I don't know at this point.
In that amount of time, what did TST help you with?
Oh, nothing.
So if it wasn't for TST, the only thing you had was the connections for them? Is that it? Really?
The name recognition.
That was really it?
That was 100%. That was the only
So
benefit.
it's really one way.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's so I start recognizing that they're not picking good leadership, that these organizers are on these meetings and they're struggling, right? I can see it. We're watching, we're talking to each other, and they're like, I don't understand how to do this. I don't understand why I'm not getting responses. I'm not, and TST's answer is, you'll figure it out. There's nothing. And then, so then they they ratchet it up a little bit. They institute this mentorship program. So people who have, do you remember the mentor? Oh, so about now my patience is getting tested.
That was an ugly point.
I don't like being told what to do. I will do what I'm told when it benefits my community and my needs. But I don't like arbitrarily being told a goddamn fucking thing. And about this point, about this fucking point, they're pushing their arbitrary button a little too fucking often, right? We get into this mentorship program. And I won't call out names, I'll just call out states. Nebraska gets signed to us. Nebraska graduated from the program 4 months before we were supposed to graduate.
Supposed to.
Right, and it's supposed to be a year-long program. So think about it now. I'm 2/3 away through this program, jumping through all these hoops. They wanted fucking a handbook at one point. They wanted blah, blah, blah. They want all these things that are eventually irrelevant because they're just going to toss them out anyways, right? It's busy work. They keep throwing this stuff at me. I'm noticing that too. And that's another sign of a cult, right? They always keep you busy. They keep you disoriented. They keep you distracted. They keep you working on the next thing and worrying about the last thing. You can't stop to put all the pieces together. But I'm reading these fucking books and they're going, watch when this happens. See what it's doing. Take the moment and it starts clicking with me, right? It was bad. There were points where we had to call in and write permission slips to TST just to meet in a bar in a group. If there were more than 3 TST members in one spot, we had to get a permission slip. And we, at this point, like I said, I'm traveling across the state to bars, each weekend to do this. But I'm like, you're fucking out of your mind. You either let me run this motherfucker and organize like it needs to be organized, or we got to figure something out.
So it was basically, Big Brother system at that point, though.
Yeah, and that's it. It kept ratcheting down. It starts off very slowly, right? And I think this is probably still true. And I don't know. I'm not in the organization now, but I bet wherever you are in the organization, if you step back and look, you're going to see these same patterns regardless of the skin or the name they put on the system they're using. It's going to be a system of disorganization and wait and see. That was a big one with TST. It was always, there's one more crazy thing. Yep. Tell your people to hold on just a little bit longer. The next thing's going to be crazy. It's going to be insane. And it was always disappointing. Mm-hmm. It was always a letdown.
So what was the final straw with that?
It was... I picked a real shit time to go ahead and pull this trigger, and it was right before COVID. So it was literally, I remember us having our last meeting March, right? Like maybe the beginning of March, and by the middle of March, it was mass lockdowns, right? Like here in Kansas City, at least. That's finally when they pulled the trigger and they said no more bars, no more restaurants. So we're up to TST about this point, and that's when old members of the Washington chapter kind of did a sneak hit on TST, took over some of their Facebook stuff, dished out a lot of dirt. And that's also what's making it doesn't matter that they took over the fucking Facebook page. What matters is they laid out a lot of dirt. And I'm not going to go into that and beat a whole lot of that either. It's out there. Check out Queer Satanic. They'll tell you all about it. They got stuff. Yeah, message me. Also, I'll send you links. All right, but we won't beat that here. What they did was they came out and they aired out all this dirt. Now I'm looking at things and going, holy shit. Not only am I seeing the red flags, but I'm seeing them get ready to sue their own members. I'm seeing some stuff here. I'm knowing that we're dishing out a whole bunch of money to TST and there's nothing happening in our community. In fact, our community's floundering. They're desperate to get out and do something. They're desperate to do anything just to live and stop being told to sit there and wait and be quiet and it's coming.
Yep. And nothing ever came.
Nothing ever came. Ever. That's the scam. Nothing ever comes, right? So we talked it over. I got with the state council. Yeah. And we talked out one night and I said, hey, unfortunately, I think that we're going to have to pull the plug on this. And I'm sorry. And I still want to do this. I believe TST is guilty of this a lot. They have a really crazy good idea, and then they fuck it all up. I think that and especially in their early years, there was a lot of that just kind of rebel punk mentality about it. Get out there and do this. Jex Blackmore, when she was in it, was insane and wonderful.
She's phenomenal.
She's phenomenal. That was the worst mistake TST ever made, was letting Jax go. If no one else is saying it, I'm going to say it right now. That's when they fucked up.
They lost me.
Where was I at with this, though? So we get together. Yeah, we pull the plug, and I remember we're still under this mentorship program, right? Some of my connections that were directly responsible for me were outside of Nebraska. The woman who was in that duo was amazing. I never had any problems with her. I think she was really, really cool. The guy there was a piece of shit. Me and him had it out plenty of times. I'm sure he'd say the same thing about me. I'm an asshole too. I get it. But there was Calgary, Canada. Oh, those motherfuckers. That's when we really pulled the plug. I was on Reddit, or I was somewhere off of official TST connections, and I was just venting. And someone was like, I think it was someone in Tennessee was like, hey, I'm having these problems. I'm seeing these things happening, and I don't know what to do. And I typed something to the effect of, oh shit, that a lot of that rings true here in Kansas. I'm dealing with the same things. And that was about the summary of the thing. I wake up in the morning after we talked about pulling the plug, right? This is like maybe 2 days later. And this fucker from Calgary is texting me at like 5 a.m. like, what's this? And he's got a screenshot of fucking me talking. I don't, like I said, I think it was Reddit or something. And I hit the fucking state council, and he goes, well, if you guys are leaving, I only ask one thing. You leave all the hard work you did and everything to TST, including your logo. Now, let me tell you about the logo. That's his sister's art. It didn't, I mean, other than saying Friends of Kansas, I mean, it was our concept for what our TST logo would look like, right? So I hit state chat, and I was like, all hands on deck, 5 a.m. I don't give a shit. Pull your shit together. Start wiping Facebook. Start wiping and like downloading pictures. And sure shit, like they're all troopers. And I miss my Wichita people who were in that group. If you're watching this, I miss you guys so much. You guys are always awesome. But they did. They got on. They were downloading pictures, throwing it on our old Grotto group because, right, we changed our name over for TST. We only had the small little group, but we was like, fuck it, bail back to the new group. Transfer everything to the new group ASAP. And we had it wiped in like, I don't know, an hour with a little we miss you letter. Please join us over here real quick. And I think it lasted until like, because no one could get a hold of Amber. And once again, Amber was very absentee, and I think there was just too much put on Amber's plate. I don't hold this against Amber, but no one could ever get the fucking hold of Amber. Amber's the only one outside of me in control from TST of that group. So it sits like all fucking morning, right? It just sits there like, bing, we've left. Bing, we've left. Bing, we've left. And they finally pulled it about noon. And they put that guy from Colorado, the guy who was on international council, they put him back in charge of the group. And obviously
And it's been dead since.
Yeah, it's fucking way been dead since. Like, I still post there just to fuck with it. Yeah, it's basically a secondary Grotto channel.
Us trolling them.
Well, it's because most everybody fucking rolled over with us. They may have stayed in the TST too, but they knew there was value in the organization that we were putting together.
And that you were actually trying to do something, and that if you had the freedom to do it, things were going to happen.
I think we even we even said that now we get to decide. And we did. We broke free.
So looking back on it, what would you have done different, if anything? Would you have done something different? If you still really wanted to be part of that organization, what would you have done?
Oh, I wouldn't want to be a part of that organization.
No way, no how, huh?
No.
Look, here's the thing. Once again, like I said, I don't think the membership is bad, but But look at who's running it. What have they accomplished at all? And don't give me some vague, well, they got an after-school Satan's club. No, they've never actually won a lawsuit. They haven't even won the lawsuit against their own members that they tried to sue. All they did was fucking rack up the bills on those motherfuckers because they're vindictive pieces of shit. And instead of using that money to fight for the causes that they supposedly represent, they're spending it on that.
Well, what are they spending the money on?
Oh God, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, and that's here's another thing. You know what? When you want to know what Grotto finances are, we definitely have a system. Our members know. Everybody can look at what we are doing, right? We've organized this in a way that we are transparent to our members about what we do with the money that we have and why we do it. You can't do that with TST. Go ask them what their earnings was last year. Check and see if you can get a fucking IRS release. Because I asked them one time when I was organizing for them, and they told me, and I quote, well, Amber told me, and I quote Amber, nonprofits don't have to do that. Now, it wasn't until after I left TST and I really started educating myself on nonprofits did I learn you absolutely fucking have to do that. Holy shit. If they won't tell you where their money's going, where your money's going, why are you a part of that organization?
And why are you giving them money?
Right. And why are you giving them money? You don't know. You really don't. I mean, look at this from an objective point of view. You don't know. The Grotto doesn't have near the money fucking TST has, but I guarantee you I know where every fucking penny is, and I will show you just to make sure you know. Holy God. Yeah. Fuck. Like I said, that one still kind of gets my blood pressure up. It takes me a minute to come down from that one.
So then you developed the Grotto.
Yeah, so that's right. So I tell everybody, head back to the old page. We're going to do whatever the fuck we want. And then it like hits me. I'm like, holy fuck, what do we want to do?
And there's COVID. So
and
what
there's
can
COVID.
you, what can
we do? Everything's been locked fucking down now, right?
We beat through that.
Holy man, that was rough. I've had people tell me and come to me that during those years in COVID, that some of our Zoom meetings were all that kept them sane. And then they looked forward to like our Zoom meeting because they finally got to express and talk to some people that they knew and that they cared for. And most of them were just god awful. I mean, it's just depressed people locked in their house for 6 months drinking. Like, what do you think is gonna be over?
Look at my dog.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Here's the dog. But we made it through, and like I said, I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that it helped so many people, and it was a struggle for leadership on all sorts of. And when I say leadership, so many people have contributed to this group. People who came in and aren't here anymore. People who came in recently and have added so much to this group. This group evolves. Just like any other organism, right? It is constantly, and when we were in that COVID, there's just no evolution. It was stagnant, and it was real hard to just keep everybody in, but fucking somehow we did it. I mean, I think we took a risk too, right there when things started to lighten up and stuff, and people were still afraid, and they were like, we don't know if we should do it. There were a lot of organizations that were like, still, well, hell, to this day, probably still don't do certain stuff together.
Definitely
right?
not what they were doing before. Right?
But most of us are smart enough to use vaccines, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah. Yeah, so
and then so it's, well, I guess it's not over. It's never over, right? Plagues never go away.
Right.
But we made it through the worst of that. And
and came out on the other side with I think an amazing group. And
do you know the joke about us causing COVID? It went around just because we did our first holiday we did for TST was Lupercalia. And I did that on the slide. They didn't want us to do anything. I just want everybody to know if you went to that party, you had a fucking time. I lied my ass off to TST for that party. Holy shit. They were like, well, you're going to have a few people? I'm like, yeah. We had 50 people that night. Fuck.
It was a good time.
But we did Lupercalia, like February 15th or whatever, and then March the lockdown. We were like, fuck, we caused the end of the world, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, Mikey, looking back through all this and seeing how it evolved, how did it make you feel watching this and being a part of it?
You know, earlier I said that I was a part, you know, there in the beginning in the process of going into TST, and then I had some issues and stuff, and I had to step back from the group for a little while. So, you know, I kind of missed out on a lot of that controversy and a lot of that stuff. Rough period, which
You knew about it.
I knew about.
So like we worked together still,
right?
Yeah.
But I really I wasn't part of it, and it I always have felt bad for that. But
See, and he said that too, and I want to point this out real quick, not to interrupt you either, but people are allowed to take a break from our group. People are not forced to do anything in this group that they don't have the capability. We encourage you to take care of yourself first. And if something's not working, you can step away from the grotto, and you know what? You can come back, and there's no hard feelings in there. You know, unless, I don't know, you did something fucking crazy on the way out or something. But like in general, if you're like, hey, I have to focus on myself, and you leave this group, this is another one of our kind of anti-cult stances, is that you're not bound. And that's, you don't ever have to fuck.
Well, yeah, but you know, like you went through a lot of bullshit, a lot of mental, you know, stuff and whatever, having to deal with all of that. And
heavy as the crown.
So, right. But but you know, just whatever.
Sorry, I love you, brother. I love you.
But coming back, you know, easing back into the group and stuff like that, and seeing what you were able to do with it during the pandemic, and the way it's came out on the other side, and the way that you have welcomed me back in, you know, and, you know, try to be like, oh, everything, you know, whatever. That just,
once again, we get in a fight once a decade.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
Right. But it goes to show you the type of people that are in this group, and the type of group it is, and what people want to achieve, and, you know, what's going to happen with this group, you know, when you have these type of people, and people that are motivated to help, and people that are, you know, happy to have you in their life, regardless of how fucked up yours is, you know, or whatever.
You know what I learned from TST, and then subsequently COVID and the lockdown, especially when it comes to organizing a community, and Satanists probably in particular, is that I have learned not to have an expectation of what this group is. Yeah, there's a structure that I have to help maintain, and checks and balances that have to be looked after. But the community gets to decide, right? That's the biggest thing I learned from TST, is they decided for us. They told us. We waited on them. I learned that if you really want a fucking community, get messy, have the arguments, have the fallouts, fucking figure it out, be human.
Be a Satanist.
Be a fucking Satanist, yeah. I mean, we're going to get on each other's nerves. Of course, we're not perfect. COS would try to tell you that no Satanists can ever get along. Well, fuck you. I've been doing this for years. I know plenty of Satanists I get along with. Plenty I don't get along with.
So what's next?
Holy shit. So what? We've been rocking.
What's going to take the Grotto to the next
World domination.
Yeah. What are we doing? Exactly. Where do we go? Where does the Grotto go next? I mean, we've got a small community. We've got some really good members that are stable and they come together great.
That's what we're right. We've worked so hard and so long on integration, person to person. And I tell a lot of new people who come in this, and here's what I've learned from organizing Satanists too. Fucking Satanists will come in hot, man. Especially one that hasn't been exposed to a particular type of community like ours. A lot of Satanists will come in thinking they have something to prove. They have a pedigree to throw out there that they have to make people understand, and they want to be in charge of something. And then,
and that's, 15-year-old us. Like, I read.
I'm guilty too. I'm an asshole too. I get it.
Well, everybody's got a pedigree.
Right.
Everybody's got a pedigree now, right?
But, okay, so that just all threw me off. Where was I at?
What's next? Where are we going?
Oh, so we're going to the moon.
Going to the moon.
No.
No, we are. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's keep building the community and try to replicate what we're doing somewhere else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we're just gonna keep working. We're not gonna have any expectations. We're gonna do what we want. We're gonna figure it out between ourselves. We're gonna affect change how we fucking see it, how we deem it. Like, fuck your social norms. We make the rules now.
And I think you got a nice tight knit community, and I like you were saying the other day about doing a pride float for the parade, and I think getting the name out there, getting people within broader communities involved, and stuff like that. I think that for the future. To me at least,
just keep moving forward.
Right, moving forward, progressing.
And there's so many members with so many great ideas. And like you said, the float is a big one coming up, working with massive productions and Michael Sublet, putting out content, right? So we haven't done a whole lot of podcast stuff, but in the meantime, we were fucking filming, we were working, and it all went to Massive's deal. And that keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like,
it's gonna be fun.
I'm originally from the Show Me state, so I'm one of those motherfuckers that's pony up first before I like really get excited. But holy shit, am I not? It feels this is fun.
Feels good.
There's big stuff coming. Kansas City's gonna know us. We're building the Fire and Brimstone team. We've mentioned Jex Blackmore before. I'll say this: the performative satanic protest that she put out, the art that she put into it, the capturing vividness of it, I can't do it near as well as she does. There's videos of me out there dancing in a thong, hell candle in front of her son, right? But holy shit, I want to see that. I want to see that coming out. I want when fuckers, I live in the goddamn state that Westboro Baptist Church is in. I literally have delivered packages on the same street and driven past that fucking hateful building. I know men who stand out in front of Planned Parenthood and force their fucking bullshit religion on people like assholes. And I just want to see us fucking deal with shit.
Bring hell.
Bring hell. Well, we call it the Fire and Brimstone team. There's a fucking reason we call it Fire and Brimstone, because when we're bringing it with us, we're done listening to these assholes.
Yep. Final thoughts?
Oh, final thoughts.
What do you think?
Man, I'm glad that we met, buddy.
Yeah, me too, buddy.
No, but I'm glad.
Love you, buddy.
I'm glad that that when we met, we had the forethought, whatever to we could see in each other.
Yeah.
What we saw, and we've taken it this far, and that regardless of what happens or whatever, that we've affected people and in a positive way.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, fuck. I mean, it's amazing.
I would go to fucking bat with you any day, anywhere, brother. So we've done it for fucking a shit ton of years, and I imagine that we're gonna do it for a shit ton more. And now we've got dudes like Travis over here and so many other fucking members, Shane. Just amazing people. What we're building here is real. It's real. It's not online. It's not fucking some imaginary construct somewhere in ones and zeros floating around a cloud. We're real. We're doing it. We're taking care of each other. We're growing with each other. We're hurting with each other. We're being the fucking best goddamn Satanists we can be. So that's my final thought. Fuck it.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.